Alright, hello everyone. I know it's been a while since I've done a tutorial, so I'm going to do one tonight finally. This one is going to be on JavaFX, and it's going to have to do with disabling buttons if someone hasn't entered input yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you over to my steps here that I'm going to go through tonight. As you see, I've named it very cleverly, text.text. And then here are the steps that we're going to take. So a thing you must know before we start is that you have to know the basics of JavaFX already. You have to know how to create objects, and by the way, we're going to work with FXML. We're not going to work with creating objects in Java code. We're going to work with the FXML file. So if you don't know FXML but you do know HTML, it's very similar to HTML. So you'll see what I mean in a second. Alright, so I named it working with buttons, and then the subject is disabling, and then it has to do with JavaFX. What we're first going to do is create text fields and a button. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a mini example program that's going to have us we're going to make a login page, right? So we're just going to make a login page with JavaFX. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to start out with going into the sample.fxml file. If you don't know how to create a JavaFX program, again, you have to know the basics. If you don't even know how to do that, then you probably don't know how to do a lot of other stuff. If you don't know how to do it, go and look up some tutorials on the basics of JavaFX. Great, so we're going to go over to sample.fxml. Alright, if you want me to do tutorials on JavaFX, I could do a few, but I'm not going to be doing a ton of tutorials, so it has to be very specific, kind of like this, kind of adding other functionality, not actually focusing on the basics of, a whole new framework. Okay, so what I'm first going to do is be anal and organize this stuff. Alright, so I'm first going to create a text field, so we're going to create a text field. Alright, great. And we're going to put in there some prompt text. So we're going to say, please enter your username. Now, we're not focusing on SQL, we're not focusing on files, we're not focusing on anything, we're not focusing on anything query related. We're not going to be working with files, we're not going to be grabbing from files. All we're doing is disabling the buttons if they didn't enter anything yet. So then we're going to create a password field. And we're going to do prompt text and please enter your password. Okay, so we're just asking them to enter their username and their password. This is in a grid pane, so again, if you know basic JavaFX, you'll know what a grid pane is. We're going to use a grid pane property, and we're going to set the row as 0. We don't actually have to change this one. We can actually just not even focus on this because it's going to start out 0, 0 anyways. Then we're just going to move this over to the right. So we're going to move this over to the right of the username field. So we're going to do, so it's already starting at 0, right? They're all set at 0. The grid pane row index is at 0 by default. So all we have to do is set the column index. And we're going to set that to 1 so that, it's 0 index, so it's going to move over to the right 1 column. And then we're gonna do the password. Where do I want the password? I'll do the password below, so on the second row. So I'll do. Whoops. Nope. Don't want to do that. I said we're not gonna do any querying, and even that count is querying, so I'm not gonna do that. All right. So we're gonna do button. We're gonna set the text in the button to submit, and then we're going to. So we're gonna set the text to submit. And we're going to set this on the second line, or on the second row. So we're going to do a row, and so now it's on the second row. So let's see if this is what I had in mind. We're going to run this, and there we go. So now we have those fields. So we have please enter your username, please enter your password. It's cut off a little bit. I'm not going to worry about fixing that right now. I don't really care. So we have please enter your username, please enter your password. And honestly, what I could do is just do username and password. Like, it's really not, you really don't have to be too fancy with that. So username, password, there we go, cool. So I enter my username, password is going to be hello world. There we go. So, all right, whoops. Let's hello world and submit. Okay, it doesn't do anything right now. We have not linked it up to anything. We haven't done anything. So what I'm gonna do is go create. So I created the text field. I created the password, right? So I created the text fields, and I created the button. Right, so I'm gonna minimize this. All right, we're gonna go into our text.txt file, and we're gonna put an X here. So well, that's just for me. So we completed that. So let's create the methods for the button is clicked. So what are we gonna do when the button is clicked? Again, minimize that. Doing Alt Tab is opening up Camtasia, my recorder, which their developers should have fixed that. You know, you shouldn't be able to Alt Tab to that while you're recording. Okay, so let's go over to controller. All right, let's create a field for the fxml file. So we'll do fxml, and we'll create a field. So we're gonna do private, and we want the text field, and this is the wrong. This happens all the time, so you have to be very careful that when you bring in text field, you don't bring in the java.auth.text field library. You want the JavaFX. You want the JavaFX.scene.control.text field, because otherwise it won't link up properly and it will be all weird, because it won't be associated with JavaFX. So now we want a way to be able to grab this text field. So whatever in that text field, right? We want to be able to grab the data that's stored in there. Now we can't, we have no way of doing that right now. We have no identifier. I mean, I could create another text field. I click Control D, by the way, to do that. And, right, there's nothing different between these two fields, right? Absolutely nothing different. They're the same exact fields. So how would I say select, oops, how would I say select that in here? There's no way. There's no way yet. So we just have to create an ID. And this is the same thing in HTML, right? It's just you create an ID and there you go. You can select it, or or a class, but classes are usually for styling. In HTML, you do the same thing. You create an ID. In this case, we do an FX ID because it's a property of the FX framework. So we're going to do FX ID, and we're going to set this to username. Come back into here and set this to username. Now it should see this popped up, and it should say this field is never accessed, right? So it's assigned, so the private field username is assigned but never accessed. Okay, so we haven't accessed yet, but we did properly grab it. So private, and then we're gonna do password field. We have to do password field, okay? Text field and password field are two completely different fields. The same thing that they have in common is that you can put text into them. That's the only thing, but they're very different. So we'll do password. Okay, now it should say it's assigned but never accessed, right? So it is never used, right? So it's assigned, right? Like this one and this one, right? Private field. Okay, password is never used. Great. Okay, so we never used it. So we come down here, and now we have to create the functionality. Okay, so let's create the functionality. I'm gonna speed through this a little bit in the editing. So public void. Let's do I'll just do onClick. Very similar to JavaScript. And we'll do onClick, and then we'll come down here, and what we want to do is store this information or access it somehow. So what I could say is access store info. So here I could put it into a database or put it into a file, right? Again, we're not going to do any of that, but all I'm going to do is access the members. So I have the username, I have the password. I'm going to come back up here, and I also need the button. So I'm going to do button really quick. I'm just going to do button. One sec. Yes, the button, and come back in here. So we have the button. Okay, so we created the button. All right, so we need to come in here and do a text FX ID in here also. So FX ID, and we want to do we'll just do submit, and I just realized I have to come up here and do FX ID password. There we go. Those telling me that, yeah, you need to enter one for that. Okay, button, and then password, and there we go. So yeah, awesome. So password field, let me see what the problem with this is already defined in the scope. Let me see here. Okay, so FX ID username, FX password, what the heck is going on here? Okay, I'm back. I fixed my stupid problem. I just had these as the same names. I don't know why I didn't see that earlier. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do here is speed through this really quick. So I'm just going to do a string, do text, I'll do username, and actually I'll just do UN for username equals username dot get text. So now we access that, and string pw equals password dot get. There we go, get text. Awesome. And then yeah, so pretty much what I'm gonna do here when they click on the button is just store this information somewhere. So I want to store it, right? I want to store it. I want to do something with it. And what I could do is do something with data, right? Do something with the data, right? So right here I'm just storing it in variables, and then later I could say write to database, right? Write to database, or do something else with it, right? We're not really focusing on this right now, so I'm going to skip over this. We're more focused on what to do when we haven't entered anything into it yet. So key released, I'll just name it key released property. I mean, you really don't have to just come up with some stupid name for it. Okay, great. So we did create method for when it's clicked. We're good. Okay, link button's action to above method. So what we want to do is link the action to the method. And again, if you know basics on this stuff, you sure already know how to do this. So we do this, and we do on click. So on click, we call the method. There we go. So we call the method. Great. So now what we're going to do is give functionality to this. So we're going to go back in here, minimize this again, and I actually want to get these as the, there we go. That's what I want. Okay, great. So we're going to do this. So we're going to do link buttons action. Okay, we already did that. We've done that now. So create method for key released event. So key release. So when the user has not clicked a key or they release a key, we want to do something, right? It's kind of like a buffer, right? We do something, you know, kind of like real-time action, so it doesn't just happen once, right? We want to check it every second. Now, this method is not run like that. Text field and password field have their own method for that. It's called onKeyRelease. They have a property for that, right? So what we can do is do key. So key release property, and we'll do it here also. onKeyReleased and key release property. Now both of them have it, right? So we'll come back into here. So I already linked them up. I had my text in here. I said, okay, link above method. So I've already linked them now. So I've linked them. All right. So create method for key released event. So when the keys are not pressed, right? When the keys aren't pressed, and when so when the keys aren't pressed, we want to do this, whatever, you know, do this processing, run this code. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the button to disabled if the key is, if the fields are empty. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create a string, right? I'm going to create a string, and I'm going to name them, well, I could do UN again. I could do UN again. And actually what I'm going to do is grab these. I'm going to grab these variables, right? I'm going to paste them because I need to use them again. And I know that you'd say, okay, well, don't repeat your code, but these are kind of like, these are just sort of, so what I'm going to do is we have username and password. So we got that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a Boolean. Okay. I could use the ternary operator for setting this value, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to do something else. So I'm going to do, there's one button, right? So I could say You know, if there were two, I would say are, but since there's one, I'd say is, right? Basic grammar. Disabled, okay, is disabled is equal to two sections, right? So two true or false sections, right? And then split them in half with an or operator. Okay, so what I want to do is I first want to check a username. So I'm going to do username dot is empty, so I want to check if it's empty, and I also want to check that if all the white space is removed, meaning like if someone entered a bunch of spaces, if all of that was removed, is it still empty, right? So you want to check for both of those. So then I'll do un dot trim. So trim takes that, removes all of the all the white space, and then check then is it then empty after you trimmed it, right? So then I'm going to do password now. Same thing here. Password is empty. Or so other and if you don't know what that means, you should really go back and just learn Java, because you should really know what that means, because that'd be ridiculous if you didn't know that. And we're trying to do JavaFX and you just like you didn't even know basic logical operators. Anyway, so the reason I did this was I said, okay, so should I disable the buttons right now? So I said, should I disable them? Okay, so then what I did is I checked, okay, are either of the text fields empty? Okay, that's essentially what I'm checking. Are either of the text fields empty? Okay, so if either of them are empty, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them to disabled depending on what they are. So I'm going to say I need to do the button, so the submit button, submit dot set disable. So I'm setting the disabled, the state of its disabledness, right, with whatever is disabled equals, right, which is why I named it is disabled, to make it more obvious what if it's disabled or not. So if either of the text fields are empty, I want to set it to disabled, right? So if this returns true, if this comes out as true, that means that one of the text fields is empty. So if I come in here, it's not gonna actually, did I already link it up? No, I didn't link it up yet, so it's not even gonna matter if I open it yet. So it's like if either of these are empty, right, and the placeholder here does not matter, the prompt text does not matter, it's not checking that, it's checking the text, not the prompt text. So it's okay, so I do username, password, so enter this, hello, right? So if you see here, what it just did here was it checked that one of them was empty, right? So one of them was empty, and I just realized I did something here. Password, okay. I just realized I didn't do that both for password. I did username on accident. But you notice how this isn't, so neither of these have anything in them, right, except for the prompt text, but again, that's not what it's checking for, it doesn't matter. Neither of these have anything in them, yet the submit button still works. It's like, whoa, what the heck? Okay, it still works. So that's a problem, right? That's a problem. Again, remember, the submit doesn't do anything except store variables. That's all it does. It stores the values into variables and then does nothing. Again, because we were going to query, do something with data, write to database, or retrieve from database. In this case, you'd be retrieving from the database. Again, you'd be querying. But anyways, again, that's another video. Okay, so the problem is when the program starts, the values are not the button is not disabled. That's the problem. The button is not disabled. So what I have to do is disable it when it first starts up. So what I have to do is I have to create a method. Well, I actually have to use a method that's defined by JavaFX already called initialize, which is essentially like main in every programming language. It runs when the program starts, right? So when the program starts, it's not the first method that runs, but on the stack, right? It runs, okay? It runs on the stack, like right at the beginning when the program starts, right at runtime. It's one of the many methods in JavaFX that runs very soon. So I'm going to do initialize. It takes no parameters, and then what I'm going to do is set the button equal to disabled. So I'm going to do submit dot set disable equal to true. So I want it to be disabled because every time someone starts the program, it should, no, nothing should be in the text field. I mean, why would you want anything in the text field if they are not entering it, right? It doesn't make any sense. So we're just gonna run this. So I just hit Control F5, which is how you run it. Okay, so look, now I can't click either. So I could enter spaces in both, or it doesn't work. So I'm gonna do hello and hello. See, now it works. Okay, now a little bonus section. I'll add a comment in here about, sorry, I keep looking at time. I'll add a comment in here about this being a bonus section. But now what I'm gonna do is check the length of the length of the fields, right? This is, if you've probably seen this on websites or on you know, you've probably seen this on websites or on YouTube or whatever. Especially if you're registering, it might say your password must be at least, you know, 8 characters long to protect you from being hacked or brute force hacked or something. And right, so it might say it has to be this long. So when you log in, it knows that already, that it had to be 8 characters long. So now it requires you to enter 8 characters, right? So what I could do is then check. So I could say or again, so or again, and say that password. So actually what I can do is I can just add this in here. All you have to do is just do or, right? So check is empty, or you know, is empty, or the trim, and then is empty, or password dot let's see if they have a length. Yeah, there we go. Length is less than, let's say, 5 characters. Okay, password length is less than 5, and then we'll come over here. So is empty. Okay, then we'll just add this in here too. So username length is less than 5. Okay, now they won't be able to enter anything unless it's greater than 5. So we'll come in here. Okay, now let's write some stuff and write some stuff. Look, you can't click submit yet, right? So I'll do hello and hello. You can now click submit because it's 5 characters long, right? This checks, is it 4 or is the number less than 5? So is it 4 or negative? You know, well, it can't be negative in this case. You can't take away nothing that's there in this case. So right, you can't take it away, so it can't be negative, but it's just less than 5, right? So it'd be 4 characters, 3, 2, 1, 0, right? That's what it's checking for. So there we go. So that was the little bonus. I could do password for the username and username for there. Now you can click submit, and you know, I'll add functionality later in a future video if I ever do querying with databases or whatever. But yeah, there we go. I hope that helped, and I actually want to make sure that I got everything. Yes, alright, great, I got everything. Thanks for watching. Leave comments, likes if you liked it, and leave comments if you were confused by it, and I'll explain more. Or I could do re-upload. So, alright, that's all. Have a great night, and I'll hopefully upload again soon. Alright, see ya.